November 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. If you could, would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
Mr. Spatafora.
Here.
Mr. Oliver.
Here.
Mr. Bentley. Here. And Mr. Marley and Ms. Smith have an excused absence. So that's everybody.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other motions, I'd like to make a motion to not call members Meyerly or Smith on any roll call votes this evening.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right, approval of previous meeting minutes. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no additions, deletions, you will move to approve the minutes.
Okay, motion by Mr. Oliver to approve our last meeting's minutes,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, approval of tonight's agenda. Before we do that, let's go to Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. I just want to point out that item 7C, the site plan and special land use for One Step Party Shop, when we get to that item, we will be recommending that it be tabled. So I just want to make sure the people in the audience, if you're here for item 7C at 21 Mile and Garfield Road, we're going to be tabling that when we get to it on the agenda.
Okay. Tabling it until,
Until the next meeting, which would be September 17th.
okay, gotcha. Thank you. All right.
And Mr. Chairman, if there's, with the our planners' comments, and if there's no further discussion, I will move to approve the agenda tonight as presented.
Motion to approve by Mr. Spatafora, seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right, old business, Mr. Box.
None this evening.
Okay, on to new business. 7A, amendment to conditional rezoning the reserves at Macomb, located on the west side of Gratiot, half-mile north of Hall Road, Section 36. Spencer Schaefer, petitioner. Permanent parcel number 0836-426-004, 0836-426-003, 0836-426-015, and 0836-276-022. All right, Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. I would like to note the applicant did just send me a message. They are running 10 to 15 minutes late, so they're not actually here. So I guess I'll defer to you. Do you want me to move forward with this item, or do you want to move this to a later spot on the agenda?
You know what, can we move to B?
We can move on to B, yes.
Okay, let's move on to B, and we'll hopefully take care of that by the time they get here. All right, then 7B, conditional rezoning, Macomb Retail Center, located on the south side of 25 Mile Road and the west side of Romeo Plank, Section 08. Joseph Ruggiero, petitioner, permanent parcel number 0808101052 and 0808101049. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. So this, as you mentioned, is located on the south side of 25 Mile Road, just west of Romeo Plank in Section 8, as you see on the map behind you. Some of you may recall this site as they've been here a few times in the past. I think we've probably been working with them for over a year at this point. And I think we are finally to a point where we have things ironed out. So what they're proposing is to conditionally rezone the entire site. That includes the existing office building, as well as a potential new building on the adjacent property. The office building is zoned O1, the adjacent property is zoned C1, and their conditional rezone is to flex use. So what the concept plan shows is a 6,000 square foot building on the west site, as you see. And this does match the master plan with the township. So the proposed uses you have listed here, I'm not going to read through all of them. You should have saw them in your packet. But they have to do with some of the setbacks, as well as the requirements for tax parcel combinations. Again, we've been working with these folks for over a year at this point, and I think we finally have this outlined and laid out in a way that everybody is comfortable. One of the big things you'll see is the driveway. The current driveway for the office building is basically in the roundabout. It's a very unsafe condition. That had to do with that's the location of the driveway when the roundabout was installed. So we have convinced them to shift the driveway over. They've set the new proposed building further back, realigned parking, and with that, staff is comfortable with this layout. Overall, there's no objections. We did note that the fire department did request, as always, that they comply with IFC 2015, but otherwise staff is in support of this at this time.
Okay, is the petitioner in the audience? You know, I think in the front row you could grab a couple of those chairs so you can all be sitting.
Good evening, Bob
All right,
Kirk.
would you please state your name and address for the record, all
Yes.
three of you?
Bob Kirk, 19500 Hall Road, Clinton Township.
Dr. Ruggiero, 17016 25 Mile Road, Macomb Township.
Catherine Satimo, Big Designs, 39817 Sunderland Drive, Clinton Township.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think Josh summed up the project pretty good. We think this is a great use for this location being between the two Romeo planks. When the roundabout was put in, that access to the doctor's office is tough there, it is dangerous. We think the size of this makes sense, and the flex zoning works really well for us with regard to setbacks. We can put the two the access point into one here. I think it's a good use for that area.
Okay. Doctor, do you have anything else you'd like to comment on?
Oh, I
or-
appreciate working with you guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, and you're good too then. All right, then I'll bring it up to the commissioners for comments and questions.
I got a quick question. Being that we're combining this, I guess this could be for Josh. Only one dumpster for the 2 units?
Yes, we're okay with that.
That'll fit. And then to the petitioner, on the existing building, no changes on the actual physical building.
None.
Okay. Well, let's hope that's a little bit safer when it's done. It looks like it's gonna be a lot safer.
Thank you.
Because I've come around there many times and you gotta do a little wobble.
Yeah,
Because
you
you think you're going in to the roundabout and you're really pulling into your driveway. So I think that's good, Josh, that we're getting this kind of cleaned up. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oliver. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question. Well, actually, maybe more than one question. I think the first one might go to Mr. Loya, and it might be to Mr. Box. I'm not sure which. Usually, I believe this one does have a clause in there where if construction is not started or finished within a certain time period, that the rezoning reverts. Is that the case here, and is it bound on start or finish, or what? How is that tied? And the reason I'm asking is I think it was commented that the building is possible, but sounds like not definite. So I guess I'm asking how that would interact if perhaps the drive lane was put in or moved, but the building was not built. How would that affect the rezoning?
So section, or paragraph 4 addresses it. It's 18 months is the time period. That's in section 4 of the agreement.
Does it have to be completed or started? So in other words, if they did the drive but not the building?
Well, it says if development is not commenced upon the property within 18 months of the rezoning taking effect.
Okay.
So typically, you'd have to have your engineering done, your permits pulled, and then you commence development.
So if the building was in the future, but it was not built for multiple years, that's not going to necessarily jeopardize it.
Well, I mean, he's gotta build within his permit, right, or the permit expires, so.
Okay. And then I guess then the follow-up to the petitioner, what is the time frame you are anticipating building the building within?
As soon as we get it approved. Funds are already there.
It's not something you're looking that it's a future phase that you might do years in the future?
No, I'm looking, and if we have a mild winter, I'm looking to break ground as soon as we can.
I think we've seen this a year ago, and at that time you had some prospective tenants. Do you have?
Yeah.
I don't need to get into who they are, but you have
Yeah, I
prospective
think
tenants.
right now we're at 5 LOIs, letter of intents.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Then the only other question I had for Mr. Box, with the conditional rezoning, sometimes it can have some elements similar to, say, a PUD as far as leeway. Is there any other items on this that would be considered not standard to a flex use?
No, these uses, O1 and C1, which is the underlying use, would be allowed in a flex anyways. By combining them, it does broaden the range of what could potentially go there. And it also provides some continuity with some of the green space in the back. I know when they came in before to try to develop it, there was going to be an offset because of the different setback requirements for commercial and office, so.
And then as far as all the setbacks, no setbacks are modified, everything else here is as typically would be within the flex zoning?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good, Mr. Tuckfield. Mr. Bentley?
I just had one clarification that I'd like clarified anyway, and that's regarding the detention. I saw notes regarding detention under parking. I heard that was taken out. And then there's a comment by, I believe it's the engineering department, that talked about if detention is needed, that there might need to be changes to the plan. There's not a whole lot of room on this plan. Is there any clarification on the requirement for detention? And if detention is being, or is required, is it being provided under the parking?
That is the plan now. We've been working with Crystal and Jim on that. So as we develop the plan, we'll go through engineering for approval.
Okay, so that is the intent. All right. Yeah, and I think that's great that this is, the drive has been centered on the new building and pulled away from that, what do you call it, roundabout, right? Right.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate your clarifications.
Okay. Anyone else?
I did have one more question to the petitioner. With regards to the wall, the rear wall, it's been a number of years, so hopefully I remember it correctly, but if I recall correctly, we saw a variance request on this back when you first built this building. I believe, if I remember correctly, that's why there's a vinyl fence there, or there was part of that. I may be remembering incorrectly. Can you help me remember how that worked out?
Yeah, so what happened when we were building, originally it was approved, I think it was a 6-foot wall, might have been, whatever the number X, it was approved for X. Basically, we built it from ground up X, and then basically the parking lot was X minus. So we had to go back and then add X plus, the difference to the top of it. You guys wanted a matching print, it was next to impossible to try and find it, so it took us probably 4 months to find somebody that could match the.
Yeah,
the
and I
layout.
think that's where the loop was when you were trying to figure out how to match it. I remember now. I saw the concrete wall and I was like, I remember
Yeah,
this.
so
It's
we-
been,
yeah.
it's gotta be 10 years since you built that.
So, yeah, it would have been 4.5 feet, down to grade. I think it's, grade is original. So, long story short, we just had to add X plus to the top.
Okay.
Cut it.
So with this new build, you're not anticipating it's a problem because you'll be doing it on the front end?
Correct.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Anyone else? Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, then, Mr. Bentley, did you? No?
No.
Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to open this item to the public.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Oliver, seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Folks, if you're in the audience and you'd like to talk about 7B, the conditional rezoning of Macomb Retail Center, please come to the podium. You have 4 minutes to talk, and we take all of your comments and we save them up until the very end, and then we go to Mr. Box. So is there anyone that would like to speak on this item? Anyone at all? Okay, Then at 6:49, I'd like it to make a motion to, I'll make the motion to close.
Okay, so
Seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. All right. Commissioners, do we have a recommendation for this item?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other discussion, I'd make a motion to recommend approval of the conditional rezoning for Macomb Retail Center, permanent parcels 08081011052 and 08081011049. This will be based on the recommendations from the relevant departments, the fact that it matches our master plan, and additionally that this updated drawing would improve the safety, health, safety, and welfare of that corner by moving the drive further away from the roundabout.
Okay, motion by Mr. Tuckfield to
Second.
recommend the amendment to the conditional rezoning,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Spatafora. Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
I will. Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, guys,
Have a
very
safe
much.
drive home, folks. Thanks.
Josh, when will that go on an agenda?
Next week.
Mr. Box, is the petitioner here for 7A?
They are.
Okay. Do I need to reread it, do you think?
Probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay, then I will do that. Let me get my glasses. All right, we're moving back to 7A. That's the amendment to the conditional rezoning, the reserves at Macomb, located on the west side of Gratiot Avenue, a half a mile north of Hall Road, Section 36. Spencer Schaefer petitioner. Permanent parcel number 0836426-004, 0836426-003, 0836426-015, and 0836276-022. All right, Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. This is a site that you guys have seen before. They've been through this process previously, and that's why this is an amendment. So they were approved for their conditional rezoning in 2023. They are back with an amendment that I'll walk you through now. So a list of the conditions as proposed. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but it limits them to 136 units. That didn't change. The development will meet the ordinance standards. That didn't change. One item that did change, the pickleball courts, previously there were 2 on their concept plan, and the walking trails have been removed, and they've made some changes to the size of the clubhouse, as well as an amenity building and a courtyard area. They have added a maintenance garage that was not there previously. Item D, the maintenance of a 50-foot rear yard setback, that didn't change. Development shall contain a minimum of 15 off-street visitor parking spaces. That didn't change. Shall donate the adjacent Gratiot Road right-of-way as required by MDOT. Didn't change. And all legal and assessor's requirements for tax parcel combinations shall be followed. That didn't change. So, highlighting what did change, the clubhouse has been reduced in size and relocated to near the entrance of the site. But now they're showing it as being supplemented by an amenity building and a courtyard area. And as I mentioned, that there was 2 pickleball courts on the previously approved concept. That is down to 1 at this time. They added the maintenance garage, as you see in the screen behind you. And building 12 is shown with 7 units. Previously, none of the buildings had more than 6 units, so that was a slight change. And they've also added some phase lines as they're going to move forward with this in phases. We did want to note, though, on building number 2, so we did kind of a blow-up of it there underneath the red text. They mentioned the 50-foot setback, which they meet everywhere. However, it appears a couple of the patios on building 2 may violate that 50-foot setback requirement. And we would just ask that they clarify how many feet they intend to project into that 50-foot setback. I think staff is okay with just a couple of those patios violating that, but we want to have a number in place for, are they going to be 8-foot patios? Are they going to be 10-foot patios? We don't want to leave it open-ended so they don't end up being 50-foot patios. That's the only thing that we would ask at this time. Staff findings, you should have got these in your packets. But again, if the patios on building 2 are going to remain, we do ask that they clarify the size. And fire did identify that they would require a suppression system.
Okay. Petitioner, please state your name and address for the record for us, please.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Spencer Schaefer, and I'm with Schaefer Development. Our address is 31400 Northwestern Highway, Suite H, Farmington Hills, Michigan, 48334. Thank you, Mr. Box, for pushing us on the agenda. It normally takes me about 50 minutes to get here, but I think it took me about an hour and 40 minutes with all the construction. So appreciate everybody putting us back one item on the agenda. Josh, are you able to pull up our presentation? I think Josh did a good job of explaining some of the nuances. We're really here because we got a plan approved in 2023. It was more of a concept plan in nature. We refined our plan. We actually went forward in late 23, early 2024 and made a site plan submittal, but staff noted that there were a handful of items, about 6 or so items, that were different from the original plan. I think we all like the concept plan better. But the past number of months, I think we've sort of been stuck going through the motions of that amendment, and there were a couple of items regarding setbacks that we had to address. So it was a little bit of a lengthy process. In addition, we were approached by ITC. ITC manages all the electrical transmission lines. There was some work. They were actually originally trying to purchase some property from the Ross family, who does own the property, so we had to work with ITC. We've now crafted that as an easement. There's actually a substation. It's called the Kings Point Substation. It's on the east side of Gratiot Avenue, but I've got some slides here later in the presentation that will talk about that. So there were some items behind the scenes that we were revising, but our hope is here we get approval on the for the revisions to the conditional zoning, and we're about 90% completed with our site plan. So we are going to be moving forward with our site plan submittal here in very short order. Next slide. So this is just an aerial of the property. It's currently 4 separate parcels, combination of uses. There are some single-family residences that are currently being rented out, and there was an audiology commercial use up front. I don't know if they're still in business, but there are a handful of residential properties currently being leased out by the Ross family. Next slide. This is just an overlay with our site plan, just to give everybody an idea. I think the next slide here actually oh no, it doesn't. We can skip this slide. Next slide, please. Oh, this goes through the history. Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. But I have a plan, I believe it's next, that showcases the old plan to the new plan. But you can see the May 2023 plan. That was what was approved as part of our conditional zoning. Our main goal with the newer plan on the right, we have the same density, but we wanted to make this a lot more visually appealing from a building aesthetic design. We're going to be addressing a handful of the changes that we've made to the buildings. But also from a roadway perspective, we wanted to do curved linear streets, add some more dimension to the detention basin. What this actually allowed us to do was increase the setbacks in most cases to the neighbors. So we're very happy about that. One unfortunate thing, we did have a minor walking trail that connected our pickleball court to the clubhouse, but we really wanted to make the clubhouse a focal element, have that closer to the entrance. As Josh alluded to, we have a clubhouse, we have a little bit of an outdoor area that'll feature a fire pit, something that's more conducive to our Michigan climate. We also have an amenity building. And then we did reduce the pickleball courts from 2 to 1. So I think these are much more minor, changes in nature. But in total, the total square footage, the total footprint of this clubhouse amenity area has increased over what was initially proposed. I think more minor in nature. We do have a maintenance garage. We look to position that on the north end of the development. We've got the lumber company to the north, so I don't think there's a problem there, but any type of unsightly equipment and such, we want to be able to park that internally. If you could go back to the prior slide, I just want to talk a little bit about the history, because it has been some time since we've last been in front of Planning Commission. So back in May of last year, we did get conditional rezoning approval. As you'll recall, the properties were zoned single-family and commercial. It was master planned for a light industrial use. So we had been working with the Ross family and with Josh Box probably up until the early point of 2022 to purchase the property, to pitch this for a multifamily use. So once we did get it under contract, we met with both bodies. We got that approved. As I stated, we actually submitted for site plan in late 2023. But with some of the alterations and additions that we did, staff asked that we go through an amendment. And as I stated in the early and mid part of 2024, we've sort of been working through 2 submittals to get staff's approval, their recommendation on the amendment. And we had to work with ITC on a couple of, those issues I mentioned. So here we are today looking to get approval for an amendment to our conditional rezoning. Next slide, please. So here, I always like to illustrate in pictures what these changes actually look like. So in the green up top, that Sanibel unit, if you'll recall, that patio actually partially extended outside of the unit. We have changed the footprint of that a little bit. It's more like a covered lanai, something we featured at a couple of recent developments we've built in Ohio that's been very well received. I personally like it a lot more. I think it's got a lot more visual appeal, and it allows residents, to use this area for longer. Obviously, in our Michigan climate with the snow and such, I think having that covered is going to give people the ability to use it more during those winter months. That second picture on the left-hand slide, that actually shows one of the buildings. It was previously a Windsor Canterbury unit. I talked about that a little bit, that we were working on some aesthetic enhancements. One of the things that we've done is actually feature a side entry unit. That is the Prague unit. It's a 1-bedroom unit. It's been very popular, something that we launched, I want to say, in the middle of last year. And this unit's specifically designed for individuals who are single-member households, where a significant other may have potentially passed away, older couples who don't necessarily need a 2-car garage. So this unit right here features a 1-car garage and only 1 bedroom instead of 2 bedrooms. It's still very large in terms of square footage. I think it's about 750 square feet, but it's just trying to add to that diversity of housing appeal. There are seniors, there are certain segments of the market who don't necessarily have that need for that second bedroom. So it's been very well received. It's not a substantial portion of our development. I think it's about 8% of our units overall. But we did it because we really wanted to increase that curb appeal, that architectural appeal, add some more dimension to the building. So what it allows us to do is take some garages from the front side of the building, put it on the side of the building, and it's almost like a dual front elevation. I didn't include the landscape plans because we're a little bit early here, but we do some really nice landscaping around that. And like I said, it was all done sort of in the effort to add some more architectural variation and appeal. One of the additional units, you can see it here highlighted in green, we call that our Windsor N unit. That actually features a sunroom option, so that unit's about 10 feet larger than some of those other purple units. Again, trying to figure out a way that we can increase architectural appeal, have a unit footprint with some additional square footage that's viewed more as a premium unit. So that's been very well received. We've done that in some other communities past year and a half, 2 years, and it was something after we went through conditional zoning that we realized we wanted to add on here. But as Josh and department staff have told us, it's change. It's a departure from what was initially approved. I personally think it makes the plan look a heck of a lot better, but we wanted to highlight that change. On the right side, I got a couple of pictures that shows the clubhouse, the pickleball court, and our amenity area. I'll let this picture speak for themselves because what we had before was essentially a conceptual clubhouse. This is something, we built 2 of these the past 6 months at other markets throughout the Midwest, and it's been super well received. And then lastly, that just shows another perspective in the bottom right of what that, hybrid now Windsor Canterbury and Prague unit does look like. You can see, it has a heck of a lot more windows the way we do the landscaping and such. Again, we think it just adds, further enhancements to the overall development. So a couple of items from planning staff's letter. One of the comments was, what is our proposed rear yard setback to the stormwater management basin? That stormwater management basin right now, it's not set. It's what we believe needs to be sized. We have done some infiltration testing, but the site isn't fully engineered yet. We're through the amendment to conditional rezone. Then we got to go through the site plan process. A lot of that's going to start being defined as we go through site plan process. But until we sort of finalize our engineering plans, that pond can potentially shift a little bit in nature. One thing I will state: one of the few parcels in Macomb that has very good well draining sand. We had very strong infiltration rates, and we believe the county may potentially allow us to downsize this basin a little bit. But, we're a little bit early right now. But one of the things engineering wanted us to do was stipulate what that setback's going to be. So we stated at its smallest area, the setback from the building to the edge of the basin will be 25 feet. There is a requirement for a 10-foot maintenance access strip. So it's a 15-foot setback with a 10-foot maintenance access strip. But that's in the smallest area, and I actually have that highlighted in yellow. I believe that's south of Building 26 where we have those 3 red units. So wherever possible, we want to make those setbacks as large as possible so our future residents can have ample room, to, enjoy the backyards and such. And we'll be doing landscape plantings and such. I know we showcase some of them here on this plan. And then also to the clubhouse, I just wanted to rebuff the comment that the square footage was smaller. With the clubhouse itself is smaller, but we have an amenity building as well that could potentially feature a golf simulator. We have a couple of options that we've explored in the past, but in total, that overall amenity space, indoor and outdoor, is going to be larger than what we had initially proposed. Next slide. So ITC, I more or less wanted to share this, give you an idea of what potentially could be coming before you. It's actually a little bit tough to see on this plan, but there is a small corner of the easement. No towers, no lines, no overhead lines are going to be located over a property, but there's a small triangular area. I believe it's about 2.2 acres in nature. ITC has approached us. It's sort of a taking. I have to give it to them. I don't really have control over it. But we're not selling the property to them, so our setbacks are going to remain the same, but I am giving them an easement. So there is a very small area. I think it encroaches at maximum about 25 feet into our property. So we had a perimeter setback there of 50 feet. ITC is going to need to be doing some clearing within that easement to meet the requirements of their charter. But I am working with one of the consultants for ITC, and wherever trees have to be taken down, we're going to make sure that they have to replace it with some type of plantings. There's a list of compatible plantings, so I'm working on that with my landscape architect right now to figure out how we can do that. But I believe the area where it's the closest from our building to the ITC easement, it's actually at my maintenance garage. It's 33 actually, at one of our buildings, it's 32 feet. So there's going to be, 32 feet from the back of our building to the edge of the ITC easement. I have to imagine behind our buildings, we're going to have to clear at least 20, possibly up to 25 feet, just so we can get our rear yard storm in there. But everything outside of the rear yard storm was going to be preserved in its current state. There's very substantial trees in that area. So where clearing does need to occur, like I said, we're going to try to plan it with whatever ITC will allow us to put there. So it's not going to change our plan, but just wanted to relay that to you as it's sort of in motion right now with ITC. And they're just completing some surveying activities. They're actually trying to see if some of those towers can be shifted actually a little bit further north. That would mean less impact on our property. So at the end of the day, I'm at the will of ITC's mercy, but we do work with them a lot, and we're confident we'll work through this without having to propose any deviations to the actual placements or roadway layout we have as part of our development. So here, this features, just a couple of more pictures on the Prague unit. I do have the floor plan as well. It is very well received. In the about 20 Prague units that we've built to date, 18 of them have been occupied by single-member households where they only have one car. So we haven't seen any issues from from a density concern in terms of the, 3 people trying to live in a 1-bedroom unit, or in terms of having an undue burden from cars. We do have a fair amount of guest parking in this development, but the Prague units, there is the ability to park one in the garage, another one in the driveway. So I don't think, we have any issues with any ordinance standards, but we'll evaluate that more comprehensively as we go through site plan. And this right here just shows the floor plan a little bit, just give you guys an idea of what that floor plan looks like. It does have ample storage, and we think it flows very well. Major difference being, it's only 1 bedroom, but as I stated, it sort of gives us a dual front elevation look, and we're excited about introducing this plan in our portfolio for our Michigan, for the apartment communities, for the communities we're going to be constructing here in Michigan over the next year. And just in case you were curious, I actually put this together for a community we're doing on the west side of the state, but they had asked for us to sort of put together representatives of materials. So what we're actually going to do, all of the buildings are going to feature similar material variation, but we change the colors, we change the type of materials. So the buildings are complementary, but they don't exactly look the same. I understand it's not a requirement of what needs to be submitted here today, but I always like to furnish, as much details about these developments so everybody can sort of get a holistic picture of what's, going to come ahead. But this just gives you a taste and flavor for what, the community is going to look like once we get underway with construction. Next slide. And then these are actually some built versions of the product. These are communities, I think I picked communities in the Ohio market, but ones that we've completed here over the past 6 to 12 months. Always, I think a little bit easier to see built version of the product to get a better idea of what we're proposing as part of our development. And then these are some pictures of the clubhouse and amenity center. Again, I understand it's not a requirement, but for me personally, I think it's always a lot more helpful when you show these pictures. Again, for the same reason, just giving better perspective, shedding better light on, what we're looking to bring as part of our reserves at Macomb Community. And then these are some representative interior shots as well, very open floor plans. I don't have the cathedral ceilings shown here, but many of our floor plans do feature a cathedral ceiling and then ceiling fans as well. So, we're trying to do something very high-end, very marketable, and having a very open and spacious floor plan. So that's the extent of what I have here. I do appreciate your time and your consideration. I do apologize that the lengthy process it's taken to get back in front here, but we did try to, sidestep an amendment, move forward directly with site plan approval, but staff wanted us to work on this additional step, so we've just been going through those motions. The last thing I do want to state, Josh had asked about the patio depth. All of our patios are 8 feet deep. So our encroachment from the building, so from the building to that property line would be 50 feet. If Planning Commission was okay with it, we'd look to, have the patio so the setback from the edge of the patio to the property line would be 42 feet. If for some reason that's an issue, I can go forward through the site plan. We do have a lot of room in that interior area. I could potentially make some minor modifications in order to ensure that setback is 50 feet. But the way I look at it is we've got 2 single-family residences in that area directly north of us. That setback in question is all the way on that south property line. I don't know what the prospect is for future development of those 2 parcels. I know that's been a concern of planning staff. I think it's probably going to remain single family. The likelihood of somebody going back there and clear cutting all the way to the property line, I think that's low. So I'd like to keep it as we have it designed, but, if that's an issue for Planning Commission, it's not going to be a problem for us to, look at that once we, move forward with our site plan, resurrect those efforts and figure out a way to comply with that 50-foot setback. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the time and, more than happy to answer any questions and field any comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Mr.?
One, no ownership, just rental.
That's correct.
Okay, so your organization takes care of water, sewer, road maintenance, snow plowing, correct?
That's correct. So I do believe
mowing.
these are going to be private roads. If they're private roads, we will be responsible for maintaining them. We will be responsible for plowing them. We do have a professional, management, a third-party management company. More likely, we're going to have full-time leasing staff here in our clubhouse. So, they're really going to be the watchful eye to make sure all of the rules and regulations and covenants. One of the things we're asked a lot is about trash. We do have a requirement as part of our lease that, trash can be kept out for a day. You got to take it in the next day. So we're going to have on-site people there to make sure all of that stuff's being policed as well. In terms of water and sewer, I believe we're going to have a master meter on each one of these buildings, and we'll charge the residents for sub-metering. But one thing I do want to state, we had mentioned it in an earlier narrative, we're going to be looking at charging rent that's anywhere from $2,200 to $2,500 a square foot. By the time we build this, may very well be higher, but it is going to be very high end. On average, our residents have incomes that range anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000. May potentially differ if somebody is a retiree, but we do have individuals with very substantial income levels. We look at this more as a rental by choice development. It's not like a conventional, rental development that is more affordable on the spectrum and is trying to attract that part of the market. We believe this is meant for individuals who want to downsize but age in place in the community. But we've recently seen a lot of younger individuals, who these developments really aren't designed for individuals who have kids. But younger couples, couples who maybe chose not to have kids, also being very interested in our developments. Throughout COVID, we really saw our target market change from exclusively 55 plus to still being a plurality or a majority 55 plus, but also, attracting younger individuals, younger professionals, like I said, younger couples. So we've seen a nice blend.
You didn't get me clear on the garbage. You're gonna collect garbage and then it's gonna get, or who's
It's like a
collecting?
single-family home. You will wheel out your garbage and your recycling, and then you'll be required to bring it back and park
It'll
it
be
inside
tied
the
into
garage.
our Macomb Township pickup? Josh, can you?
I don't think so. It would be a third party they would hire as they manage the property.
So, you're gonna hire your own people?
We'll have
Pick
to
the trash
see.
up.
I'm sure there's,
Contractors that will pick that up?
yeah.
I just wanna get that clear.
Priority waste, I think, is now the only
They're
garbage
for us now, Macomb, but you could hire them and they would pick it up?
That wouldn't be problematic. If that's what we have to do, that's what we'll do.
Okay. No basements?
No basements.
None of the units have basements. In the garage for the maintenance, it's on phase 2. So when would you start building that garage? Would you wait till phase 2 or would you build it before to service?
With
First-
what we're seeing with rates right now, our goal would be to break ground on this, for this development by summer of next year, possibly fall of next year. We're gonna try to do everything that we can to get a shovel in the ground by summer. If rates continue on the current trajectory, we think it's likely this is gonna be in one phase.
Whole unit?
Correct, the whole development in one phase.
Okay.
If rates sort of stay where they are now, there is a prospect that we split it in 2 phases. What we would look to do is build out the first phase, and I may look at making an adjustment to the phasing line if that maintenance garage, isn't included. But it would be our intention to start the second phase just about as soon as we were done with the first phase. So say that's gonna take us, for that first phase, once construction starts, anywhere from 12 to 18 months, we'd look to get underway with that second phase as soon as possible.
Okay. One last question. I don't know if I missed it, but did you say $2,500 a square foot for rental? Give me a rental price.
So our square footages range anywhere from like 1,200 to
Okay.
1,400 square feet,
Hold on. A 2-bedroom, what's it rent for?
22 to $2,200 to $2,500.
A one-bedroom, what's it rent for?
The one bedrooms will probably be closer to $2,000.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oliver. Anyone else? Mr. Bentley?
Just clarifications. Your conditions indicated that you would maintain the 50-foot setbacks on, and as indicated, on the far north, I guess the furthest north, and the northeast side and the west sides. The other two sides really have less than 50. Is there, Mr. Box, is there a minimum setback that is required for this facility from?
I think, are they not meeting 50 on all sides? Is that what you're?
No, they're not.
Right, so the sides that they've indicated as one of the conditions that they'll meet the 50-foot setback, the other sides would default to the zoning that they're R2L, which I don't know off the
It's
top of my
30
head.
it's
Is it
35 feet.
35 feet.
Okay.
All of our perimeter setbacks, our side yard setbacks, they're greater than what's required by the ordinance.
Okay.
As part of this plan redesign, we actually increased all of the other setbacks too. So we did mandate 50 feet on the western property line. I think my tightest encroachment is 50, I don't know if that says 55 feet is one of them. I think the other one says 57 feet. And that's from the edge of the patio to the property line. On the north end, because we have those covered lanais, that's always 50 feet. So the only place, Josh, are you able to pull back up that exhibit? I believe is or it was in your presentation too, but I believe it's my 5th slide or something. Yeah, if you're able to zoom in to the plan on the right. So it's that, so all of those setbacks to the south, those are only required to be 35 feet. So in our smallest area, we're 40 feet. Can you go to the northeast corner of the plan? I believe that's what Commissioner Bentley was referring to. It's building number 2, actually. I'm sorry. That's backing up to those single-family residents. So building 3, building 2. The only area where we have an issue would be those 2 northerly units where we have an 8-foot patio, so that's 42 feet from the edge of patio to the property line.
External patios, yes.
Correct.
What about building 7? Because it appeared, and that's on the west side, that appeared to be a lot closer than building 8. Building 8 was dimensioned, building 7 looked closer, and I was curious as to what that ended up being.
So where we actually, where we dimensioned, those should have been the closest points. I can get clarity on that, and if for some reason that it should be at a minimum 50 feet, it should actually be bigger than that 55 feet to the north. But if for some reason it's smaller than 50 feet, we'll make sure to comply with that 50-foot requirement.
Okay, so okay, that's fine. And then any of the ends of drives, let's say between buildings, let me verify, building 6 and building 5, at the end of your drive on the west end, is there going to be any kind of a turnaround there, or something that they don't have to pull into somebody else's drive to turn around?
We can, I believe we do have ample space there for a turnaround. But if the fire marshal has any requirements, from a life safety perspective, if we have to do a T, that's something that, we would look to install. I'd have to defer to my engineer, but I can look into that and make sure that, turning movements aren't going to be restricted if somebody wants to turn around, that they don't have to get into somebody's driveway. We can look into that.
Yeah, and I would add, I think our fire department looked at this. The length of that leg is short enough that it meets the fire department. They'll use that intersection as a T turnaround if need be.
Okay.
For vehicular traffic, if you were talking about putting like a hammerhead on the end,
Right.
I mean, that's doable. We can address that when we get to the site plan phase. I don't think that we need to be that detailed on the concept plan.
Okay, okay. And
It's a good point, though.
your layout does show proposed pickleball court, it shows, what, 2 courts or 4 courts?
The original plan showed 2 courts, the revised plan shows 1.
Okay, I guess I see 2.
And
but-
we had that, well, there's that, so if you're looking at this newest plan right here, so the building all the way to the north, that's the clubhouse.
Yes,
And then we have that interior courtyard building, interior courtyard area in the middle. Then we've got the amenity building, and that's 1 pickleball court.
oh, okay.
I don't know the official dimensions of the pickleball court, but
That's fine, it appeared to be 2. Okay, that's really all I had on this. Thank you for your clarifications.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think probably starting with Mr. Box. Mr. Box, Charlie had mentioned trash removal. Do we, and not that I'm looking to override Charlie, but what's our responsibility with regards to trash in this case? Because I didn't feel like the question was answered, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, for commercial buildings, we have trash bins or areas identified as a trash receptacle. For residential developments like this, we do not typically mandate that they use a certain provider or what day of the week, anything like that. They're going to have to find a third party. If they're able to get on the same contract with the township, that I'm sure it's great for them. They'll probably get a benefit of getting a reduction in cost because it's a large contract. If not, they still have to find somebody to service the trash. But I don't see that as, and Mr. Aloya can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really see that as a purview of the planning commission.
No. It's essentially private development. It's like a condo complex. You know, they handle their own trash. They have a contract. They can jump down with priority fine, but we're not going to be responsible for it.
Okay. All right. And then to the petitioner, if I'm following this correctly, and it's been a bit since we've seen this drawing last time, and I did not have them side by side while I was reviewing them. So the trail was going to connect the pickleball courts and the community center. Is that
Correct.
accurate? So the reason the trail is gone is because they're now directly adjacent, and also your houses there, building, it's to be 25 and 26, are probably also closer to the retention basin, which means you have less room there. Is that generally
That's correct.
reasoning?
That's
Okay.
correct. And to try to meander a trail through there, I don't want to have a sidewalk trail that's right in somebody's backyard. So more from a privacy perspective, why we, look to eliminate that.
Do you see pedestrian movement through your other communities?
So the township requires sidewalks on both sides of the street. When we had originally put our initial concept plan together, it didn't account for sidewalks. So our setbacks did change. That's a 5-foot walk, and then the township requires a 5-foot green belt between the walk and the back of curb. So we actually had to add 10 feet, consider both sides of the street, 20 feet in those areas. So what we really aimed to do was stick with those commitments where we said we would have the 50-foot setback from the back wall of the building to the property line and sort of cluster things in a little bit more. So that was sort of the major change out here. But we have sidewalk on both sides of the street. We're building, the 8-foot non-motorized pathway fronting Gratiot Road. We think there's good connectivity out in these areas, and if possible, we like to, we have a little bit of an open space area internal where we don't have that basin. If we have some excess soils, I want to put some soils in there. I want to be able to add some grade considerations there, and maybe we'll do where we have those larger setbacks from back-to-back units. We'll do some smaller walking trail and some park benches and such, just so we have a little bit more of a passive amenity also included. But we'll look into that further as we get into site plan, because the placement of buildings may shift a little bit, so we can add those areas.
But relative to the original question, do you see foot traffic through your communities? What do you typically see?
From residents, there is I think there's less foot traffic overall than like a typical residential community. That's what we've seen from the 6 communities that we've done in other markets in the Midwest. I probably visit those about 4 or 5 times a year. I never see more than a handful of people walking around. I think most people are walking from their buildings to that amenity center. But that's the best I can offer on that comment.
And then the last question for you was with regard to the pickleball courts, because it is drawn in here. It's written as singular but drawn as plural. And well, don't have an expert eye on this. I believe the ratio is also for plural, so I'm wondering if this is an accurate drawing. It is conceptual, obviously, but I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're clear on what that is.
The drawing I have that was submitted says proposed pickleball court.
Yep.
So all singular, and again, I don't know the regulation size of a pickleball court, but my architect provided me with a standard detail, and he said that's enough room to accommodate a singular pickleball court.
Mr. Box, I guess I would just ask if the footprint for that changes, do you feel that falls under a technical change if it was to reduce, or would you, well, I just want to make sure we're
If
not.
it's just the pickleball court, I think that would probably be minor enough that it could be a technical change.
All right, and then to Mr. Aloya, with regards to the setback, I guess that would be on, I'm not sure if that's the north or northwestern boundary line, but I believe that based on what the petitioner is saying tonight, that contrary to their proposed restrictions of 50 feet, they are looking to do less than that. Is that something that we should look for an amendment to this before we vote on it? How, if we were to allow that, or if we were not to allow that, how would we proceed with that, considering it's different than what's written?
So this is the date and time to offer conditions, and we've had petitioners offer oral conditions or amend the conditions through the course of the hearing. So they can certainly do that now if he chooses to do so.
And the appropriate thing would then be for him to offer a oral amendment to their agreement, specifically referring to that distinction?
Yes, yes. I mean, it is in writing for the purpose of getting on the agenda, but as we know, things change through the course of the hearing, and this is their time, it's their offered conditions, and so if he wishes to amend that, he can do that now.
And again, just to clarify our position in this, we don't offer conditions, he can offer conditions, and we can recommend or not recommend them.
That's correct, and it's always in the petitioner's best interest to be thorough and explain the conditions now, so there's no ambiguity later.
Okay. All right, with that, I know you did talk to it, but could you speak to that a little bit more with regards to what we would be voting on?
I don't know if the question's best positioned to the attorney or Mr. Box, but my understanding of a perimeter setback is that it's from the exterior wall of a building to the property line, not from a patio edge to a property line. In the case of these two units right here, one of them, we actually did have a covered patio. As part of our second amendment submittal, we actually got rid of that covered patio. So my understanding was we did comply with that requirement because from back wall of the structure, because if we have a covered patio, the back wall is now considered whatever the edge of that structure is. Our covered patios, we do have a little bit of a gable build out with some posts. So I understood how that was an encroachment into the setback, but if we're just proposing a standard patio, is that even an encroachment into our proposed 50-foot rear yard setback?
So the 50-foot setback does typically take into account the principal structure, as you said. But I think we wanted some clarity because everything else, all of the other patios meet the 50-foot as well, except those two on building 6. We just wanted some clarity that those weren't going to be, 30 feet large in the future, just to put a number on it. Whether you said 8 foot, whether it's 8 feet, 10 feet, whatever that number is.
Did you confirm it was 8 feet? Okay, I'm comfortable. Okay, I'm comfortable with putting a restriction that that patio will have a maximum depth of 8 feet. So, again, if you want to call it the setback from the edge of the patio to the property line would be 50 feet. I could also look at, as part of my site plan, pulling that in. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I don't have any rear-to-rear setbacks. So, I know it's up to me to propose it. Selfishly, I think my road will decrease about 6 feet or so if I increase the size of that setback. So we're okay with making the modification to have a 50-foot, it's not, I'm calling it a setback, I don't know what to call it, but it's going to be 50 feet from the edge of the patio to the property line, so long as it doesn't require me redo a plan and go through the amendment process. I think that's something small enough in nature
if
that
I-
we could probably handle as part of site plan if that's agreeable.
If I could, I don't speak for the whole board here, but just for myself, I'm not necessarily looking for you to modify necessarily, other than to state what you're requesting. So I'm not asking for you to push it to 50 feet.
Sure.
The board would have to decide whether they wanted it. I would just want to make sure that it is clarified and on the record what you are requesting.
So to simplify this, let's ask for an 8-foot, 40 feet, let's call it. Worst case scenario. I believe that patio's 8. I don't think it's 10 feet, but just so we don't have to deal with a math fiasco later on, if we can have 40 feet, and I don't know if we need to specify it only to these patios on building 2.
If I could speak to you what I'm hearing, not to recommend
Sure.
something, but tell you.
Understood.
And that is that you are looking to ask for a patio not to exceed 8 feet in depth on building 2.
I would say that's something that I'm willing to propose.
I'm not looking to propose it. Is that what you are?
That's the intention of what we'd like to propose.
Is, dancing here, Mr. Loy, I don't want to suggest
Or is
that,
it
but-
that the setback will be no less than 40 feet, then he can do
Okay.
it, right? I
Okay.
think that's the easier,
I think that
that'd
was
be
what he's-
easier for me.
that's easier. I think it's the setback that you're concerned about.
Identifying the building, just
For
that
building 2, the
Building
setback will
setback
be a
will-
minimum of
with the
40
patio
feet.
will be no less than whatever
Okay.
the number is.
I think I understand it. I appreciate it. Sorry for dancing around there. I want to make sure we understand it, but don't step on
I understand that.
your stuff there. Okay. I think that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So just follow up with Aaron, Mr. Olives. We only have one unit that's gonna have a setback of 40 feet.
We're talking about one unit, and specifically on that one unit, we're talking about 2 patios.
On building number 2.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioners, anybody else? Mr. Spatafora?
Mr. Schaefer, on the, this conceptual site plan overall, is your intended depth for all the other patios and all the other buildings 10 feet in depth?
So the setbacks that we show on the balance of the site plan, so Josh, if you want to pull back up the site plan, I think Commissioner Spatafora, your question relates to the northern property line, the western property line, the southern property line, and that's actually building 1, that sixplex building off of the entrance. And all of those, well, the locations where we stated 50 feet, which is on the north end and the west end, we will have a minimum 50-foot setback from the edge of the building to the property line. My setbacks, that's the way it is on the north property line because I don't have any patios that extend past the building. On the western property line, the setbacks that I'm showing right now are from the patio to the edge of the property line. And in the smallest area, I believe that's 55 feet. Building 7, somebody referred to. Building 7 is actually the building furthest west, just north of that blue line. We don't have a setback labeled. On the next building south, I'm showing that setback at 57.7 feet, so I'm measuring that at 58 feet. So at a minimum, the setback from the patio to the property line will be 50 feet. In most cases, it'll be 55 feet or, whatever else I'm showing here. On that yellow building, building 9 in the southwest corner, it's actually almost 60 feet. And then on the south end, what we're showing is all greater than the 35-foot requirement. Same thing on that north end where building 1 is.
Okay, I know we're here for a conditional amendment to the conditional rezoning, but we've delved in, I think, to some degree with a lot of what will be covered when you come back for site plan approval. But is it your intention that the deck dimensions, except for building 2, can you give me a rough dimension? Are they gonna be the same, or are they gonna be tailored depending on the different setbacks you described throughout the whole perimeter?
It's going to be to the latter. So on the north end, it's 50 feet minimum. On the west end, it's 50 feet minimum. On the south end, it's 35 feet minimum. My smallest encroachment is showed at 40 feet 3 inches. And then that building 1 is actually 48 feet because I did a bump out of the 2 middle units. But we're not going to have, I'm trying to answer your question. The encroachments are not going to exceed anything that you see here on this plan.
But will that change the dimensions of your decks other than in building 2? I mean, you're gonna have a minimum standard 10 feet?
I think all of their patios are
Patio.
standard.
Yeah,
right?
all of the patios will be 8 feet in depth. The widths may change a little bit. I think one of them's 8 feet, the other one maybe 10 feet. But the depths of the patio I know are all standard at 8 feet.
8 feet from the rear brick ledge?
Correct.
Okay. In your other developments, with the surrounding, have you ever had other similar, similar land use around, what, in your other developments as you have here? In any of your other communities, multi-state?
The setbacks that we are proposing here, the rear yard setbacks, perimeter setbacks, whatever we want to call them, these will actually be the largest rear yard setbacks we've had to single-family developments to date. In most circumstance, again, the requirement in your ordinance is 35 feet. In some communities, it's as small as 25 feet. I always like to go above the minimums. I think it's a benefit to neighbors. It also gives us the opportunity to preserve more vegetation. So, as I've stated, this plan on every single perimeter setback, with the exception of, we'll call it the 2 patios on building 2, it either meets those perimeter setbacks or has increased perimeter setbacks, compared to what was approved as part of our conditional rezoning. So at every step of the process, I'm looking to maximize those setbacks where possible.
And I think our attorney, Mr. Aloya, maybe answered that. Well, maybe he didn't. This will be my original question to you. There's no restrictions as far as the residents in this particular community. This is not strictly over 55. This is for all ages with no restrictions?
That's correct.
That's the intent?
That's the intent, but we do perform a robust background check, a robust financial check. There's certain metrics, that residents have to meet, for them to live in as part of our community.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, then I'd like to make a motion to open this item to the public.
So moved.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mr.
Support.
Oliver.
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. So folks, if you're in the audience and you have a question about the amendment to the conditional rezoning for the reserves at Macomb, please come up to the podium. You have to state your name and address, and then share your concerns or questions. And we will save them all again, like I said before, until the very end, and then we'll go to Mr. Box. So who would like to come up first? Ma'am, come on up. Would you rather sit? Would you be more comfortable if you sat?
I can do this.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
I can.
I live on Brentwood,
Name and address first.
46064 Brentwood. My name is Carol Bruson,
Okay.
and I'm wondering if his property line is mine. There is woods behind me, and if he's going to come within 40 feet of the property line, if it's, I don't know. And then also I'm wondering, is there any fence line proposed or a wall or anything to keep these people from coming through my property?
Okay.
Sit down?
Yep. You're good. Thank you very much, Carol. Anyone else?
Excuse me, but name's Gerald Kolb, 46255 Brentwood. I live other end of the street from Carol. I was here last year. We have a neighbor that lives on the boundary line of the property development. On the western boundary, which is north-south, we thought last year that they would leave a good swath of trees. It's like a nature center on the west side of the development. It's like a nature center. It's a lot of trees and bushes and things. And we were hoping for maybe a 30-foot barrier. We asked for a 50-foot barrier of trees. Well, I guess we were naive. That's not going to happen. The 50-foot is going to be from the back of someone's patio to Carol's backyard. So I would really ask the board to make that wider on the west side and get them to leave some trees. It's just beautiful back there. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Got another neighbor coming.
Good evening. My name is Frank Summers. This is my wife, Diane, and we live at 46290 Brentwood. Now, with this plan here, they're proposing, ITC, which these folks here are not aware of, that we've been dealing with them for quite some time now, and we're in litigation with them. They want to come through, they let you know they're going to cut down all your trees. Take out by my house, all that's going to be gone. And then they won't put an easement right through the center of my house. Like you guys are saying, you talked to ITC to push them farther north. Well, that farther north is right in the center of my goddamn house.
Okay.
So just to let you guys
Sir.
know what's going on.
You got to address the board.
Oh, okay.
Not the petitioner.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Would let you guys know what's going on. I mean, it's literally cutting my house in half. And I'm losing value on my property, and the neighbors are going to lose value on their property too when this all happens. And with the Kingwood, or was it Kings?
Kings Point.
Kings Point, those people are irate about that power station going in too. So we've been talking to all these folks. So this is like a really bad problem. You want to say anything?
No, I agree with Jerry.
Yeah.
I mean, we had talked about it, and I was just gonna ask for clarity, because we were remembering two different things ourselves in our own home.
Right.
Did they promise or plan to have a wall there that we talked about?
Right.
Or was it a tree line, and we could not even agree at our own house? Did it come to a conclusion? And then, even if it did come to a conclusion with the planning at that point, the ITC changes that have come through that have said, all those trees will be taken down, at least starting on our property, right? And we're just, if you will, we're just north of that border over there, and we are just bordering with Carter Lumber. So they plan for the power pole to be on Carter Lumber, but the easement comes through the back of our property, and then, as he said, the whole northeast part of our property right straight down through the middle. So, having said all of that, we don't have a lot of control over that, and are negotiating with them, but that whole tree line could be, even if they were willing to keep it, it may not be able to be kept
Right.
just because
ITC
says
wants to cut it all down.
wants it to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, that may not be anybody's choice.
Okay, please address the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. We did have to hire a lawyer.
We did have to hire a lawyer for this.
You know,
It's
to
quite
look at that.
expensive, yes.
So, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. Then I will make a motion. Sir, you had your chance. All right, hurry up.
Gerald Cole, 46255 Brentwood. I don't get to many council meetings, even though I don't like the western boundary, but the guys from Schaefer there, they did a good job of explaining, even though we don't like some of it, but they did a good job of explaining things, so I hat
Thank
off
you.
to them.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to make a motion at 7:48 to close the public.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. And we'll go to you, Mr. Vox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. I will try to answer some of those. So if you can see the screen behind you, I believe Brentwood kind of runs off the side of this. So that these, you can see the parcel lines here off their property. Those would be the properties along, their front yard would be on Brentwood. So I don't know which units these folks live in, but yes, their rear property line would be adjacent to this development. With regards to trees, yes, a lot of this, in fact, I can pull up their presentation. I think they had a good aerial picture. Yes, a lot of this area is fully treed right now. That being said, Macomb Township does not have a tree ordinance. Any person in the township can cut down a tree or multiple trees on their property. Clearly, they're leaving over 50 feet between the edge of these patios to the edge of the property, all along that property boundary. How much of that they choose to leave full of trees is up to them. And my guess is some of the property on the other side of the property line in their backyards also already has trees on it. So as long as some of those trees stay up, there will be even more of a buffer. But again, the township does not have a tree ordinance, so we have no requirements to apply to cut down trees or anything of that nature. With regards to ITC, they're just like consumers or DTE. They're a public, quasi-public entity. I'm sure Mr. Aloya can speak to it a little bit better, but they do have some jurisdiction that we would really not have authority over, just like a railroad would. They have some abilities, and if they are working out easements, then they have the right to use that easement. As part of those agreements, especially ITC, they often do cut down trees. That is true, because they don't want those trees to grow up and entangle their power lines. So they clear the land underneath them. If you drive down Hall Road between, I think it's Hayes and Shaner, you can look north and south, and there's power lines there. There's not a single tree in there. That's the way they like it to look. It's a insurance thing for them. They don't want those trees to entangle their power lines. So if they do, in fact, acquire an easement through here, then yes, that's probably what they would do.
Okay. All right, let's bring it back to the commissioners. Go ahead, Mr. Bentley.
There was a question regarding the intent of what is being proposed for the property line or at the property line. Any kind of fence, any kind of tree line or wall.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, and I'm going to meet with the residents afterward, but a couple of items I want to state. One, the original plan that we got approved.
Sir, you need to address the...
Okay. The original plan we got approved as part of the conditional zoning showed 50 feet between the property line to the back of a building. Now, it's a minimum of 55 feet. In most cases, it's above 55 feet. I've done enough of these, with our rear yard storm, we're probably going to need to encroach 20, possibly up to 25 feet off of the back of the building. So let's do some math right now. We got 55 feet as a baseline. We take out 25 feet, for our rear yard storm. The hope is we're going to have a minimum of 30 feet where we're going to be able to preserve existing trees. Not a requirement by Macomb Township, not a requirement of our site plan approval, not a requirement of our conditional rezoning, something voluntarily we're willing to offer. Our preference would be to keep that entire area natural. So, wherever there's gaps and such, I'm more than happy to, look once we get in our formal landscape planning. There's requirements for landscaping, figuring out where to strategically locate that landscape plantings in areas that maybe were clear cut by neighbors or by prior residences. Look, at the end of the day, I understand these neighbors, they've been here for a much longer time than we have. We're coming in, we're proposing a new development. There's always a little bit of hesitation when that comes, and I want to do everything that I can to be a good neighbor to the community and to the adjacent neighbors. So we're going to do, whatever we can to try to, buffer this as well as possible. Again, my preference is always to do it natural. If I had to put in a fence, I'm going to have to go in there, I'm going to have to grade, I'm going to have to clear cut trees. I don't want to do that. So we want to create as large as possible a natural buffer to separate our uses. And as I stated beforehand, the requirements for us to have a 35-foot setback. We're, in majority of cases, 20 feet beyond that. So we're doing everything that we can. We're not sidestepping the ordinance by any means. We're trying to, have setbacks that are substantially larger than the minimums required by the township.
Okay.
And if I may state one thing about ITC, I have some exhibits, and I'm more than happy to share this information with those folks. There's not going to be any clear cutting on our western property line. But I don't want to speak about it further. You know, ITC has plans. They're going to be making those public. But I will share, I did have a conversation with the individual who's running this on behalf of ITC this morning, so I'll be happy to share that information with the residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioners, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, to Mr. Box, obviously this is multiple parcels here. What's the zoning on the current largest parcel, the one to the north? You know which one it is?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
We've got a mix of R1, C2, C4, and R2L. I don't know if the petitioner knows the large one to the north side.
It's on our, I think it's on our plans.
I glanced for it, but I did not see it.
The C2.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. My guess is that it's residential. The only one that I think is commercial is the one that had a music studio on the front, I believe.
Where I think it's pertinent is what is the majority setback, since this is a rezoning, and I think it is pertinent to the conversation. What is the setback that's already majoritively on the site? Obviously, if it's R1, the setback would be lower, but R2L, we know that the setback is 35. We know C4 has a larger setback. And I think to the point of when we looked at this last year, this is a transitional zone. So if someone built something here, if someone came to us and it was an R2L and they proposed a 35-foot setback, we would have to grant it. And so to me, I appreciate if the petitioner will offer more, if he's going to look at that in site plan, but I see a 20 extra foot of setback on here as an advantage. And I also see it as an advantage that this would be potentially going to a residential use, even if it's more high density than a commercial use, because I could certainly see this going commercial and industrial or being requested, and it'd be very difficult for us to say no in that case. So I can certainly understand the residents' concerns. I would share them if I had that in my backyard as well. But looking at this holistically, looking at it with what I know of the township and how development goes, from a planning perspective, this to me is a better scenario than a lot of scenarios where we would have to say yes to. So my vote still will remain with that. I can certainly understand the concern, but just giving some context to what I'm thinking of that, I believe this is better than a lot of different scenarios where we would have to say yes regardless. So those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley?
I guess, just looking at the planning department's review, indicates that M1 is to the north, light industrial, and to the east is R1 and C4 commercial.
And I appreciate it. I was more wondering the parcels themselves. So my guess is that within the boundaries of what they're developing, that large parcel is already an R2L or a C4, in which case, if they did not combine these parcels and they just came before us to propose a development, they could build right now without us rezoning, without maximizing that setback at a shorter distance than what they have here. And so relative to the question tonight is not a site plan, even though we are seeing site plan issues. The question before us tonight is a rezoning, and does it make sense to rezone? And my opinion, having looked at this, is that there is a larger benefit for the township and the residents rezoning with the conditions than there would be if it was left neutral. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we good? All right. Do we have a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman?
Recommendation. Pardon me?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion. Based on the comments and review from our planning department, the other department reviews, the presentation from the petitioner, the comments and review by our planning commission, I will go ahead and make the motion to recommend approval to the amendment to the conditional rezoning at the reserves at Macomb. Permanent parcel number 0836426004, 0836426003, 0836426015, and 0836276022.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, discussion, if I might.
Sure.
To Mr. Spatafora, just a friendly amendment proposed, that you would also note their proposed amendment to the amendment, that the setback by building two would be 40 feet, no less than 40 feet as opposed to no less than 50.
Please add that to my motion to recommend approval to that amendment, based on your amendment tonight, offered this evening to the Planning Commission.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and second that. Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Second, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Will do. If I'm close enough here. Okay, Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you everyone for coming. All right, next item is 7D, Special Land Use Assembly Jiu-Jitsu, located on north of 23 Mile Road, a quarter mile west of Romeo Plank Road, Section 17, Hoco Group LLC petitioner, permanent parcel number 0817344-027.
Mr. Chair, don't we have one in between that?
Yeah, if we could go back to item C and formally table, I know I announced,
Did I forget one?
yeah, I announced at the beginning that we would be tabling it, but we need to formally make a motion to table it to the September 17th.
Okay, I understand what you're saying then.
Thank you.
All right, so should I read the whole? Probably.
Yes,
All
please.
right. 7C, my fault here. Site plan and special land use, one-step party store located on the southwest corner of 21 Mile Road and Garfield, Section 31. Jinan Keikos, petitioner, permanent parcel number 08312260003. Mr. Box.
007, I believe, is the last of that.
Oh, did I say it wrong? Okay,
And
007.
yes, as I mentioned before, this item, we are requesting that it be tabled to the September 17th agenda. They have some things that they need to fix, as well as their site is conditioned on some variances that they're requesting later this week anyway. So staff is requesting that this be tabled.
Okay. I'll make the motion to table this item. The site plan and special land use for one-step party shop, permanent parcel 08312260007, and we'll table that until the next meeting, which will be September 17th.
Question on your motion, Mr. Chair. Is the petitioner in the audience on this particular agenda item, or did they leave?
I don't believe they were here at all.
At all, okay.
Okay. All right.
Withdraw.
All right. Motion
I'll support it. Second.
Motion by myself, supported by Mr. Spatafora. Mr. Bentley?
yes. Okay, Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
so,
Okay, motion passes. All right, on to 7D. Special Land Use Assembly Jiu-Jitsu, located north of 23 Mile Road, a quarter mile west of Romeo Plank, Section 17, Hoco Group LLC petitioner, permanent parcel number 0817344-027. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. As you see on the map behind you, and I'm sure you saw it in your packets, this site is at the end of Regency Drive. It is on Leone Drive, specifically Unit 27 of the Regency Commerce Center development. We do allow sports facilities, athletic facilities in an industrial zone, conditioned on the fact that they are granted a special land use. So we already have a number of these in industrial zones in the area. There's, I think, a Jetbox Baseball. I think there's a CrossFit gym and a few others. In maybe not in Regency, but along on the north side of 23 Mile and other industrial developments. What they are seeking, this is a jiu-jitsu gym, as you mentioned. They're going to be open Monday through Saturday. 2 to 3 classes will be offered a day. Class times likely 11:30, 5, and 6:30, and between 5 and 20 students are expected per class. They are looking at some of the end units on that building on the far right, as you see on the screen there. So looking at the conditions or the criteria for a special land use, we do not feel that it's going to create, anything with size or character that's going to be detrimental to the neighboring community. It will be harmonious with that. The proposed use shall be of a nature for vehicular and pedestrian traffic not to be more hazardous than normal. Parking is really the key thing here. This is really the main thing that you guys would have to look at. It's already a commercial operation there. There's plenty of traffic coming in and out. There are 190 parking spaces available for the 3 buildings. In addition, the vast majority of these are operated throughout the course of the day, ending normal 9 to 5 type jobs. Maybe a few of them have a second shift, but very few. As you saw on the previous slide, their hours are more in the evening. So I really don't think that they would be competing with the businesses in the area as much as a business would be, should they be open 9 to 5 like a normal business. The proposed use should be designed with respect to the operation of the area. I don't think this is really going to be a concern. That they're completely internal to the building. They're not going to create a nuisance outside. The nature of the buildings, these are spec buildings that they're being built, I believe, right now. So the nature of the buildings fit with the character of the area. Again, they're going to be completely internal. We don't anticipate that they're going to interfere or discourage development of adjacent property or buildings. Whether they'll relate with the physical or economical impacts of adjacent land, it's not really applicable here. The building is already going to be up, whether they're the tenant or somebody else is the tenant. Same with, is it necessary for public convenience at the proposed location? There is a demand for it in the community. Does it necessarily have to be here? Maybe not, but when you look at their usage, their hours, I think it fits very nicely with the adjacent buildings. And is it designed and located in a manner that will not be a public healthy, safety and welfare concern? It will not be. Again, they're operating in the back corner of this facility. They're internal to the building, so it's really just the parking that I think the Planning Commission needs to concern themselves with this evening. Do they feel that the 190 spaces for the 3 buildings is going to be sufficient for this? Staff is in support of this. As someone who has participated in jiu-jitsu gyms a number of times over the years, I think these are great for the community. It's promoting healthy lifestyles within the community, and there's certainly a demand out here. I think there's quite a few of these gyms that have closed during COVID because of the no contact rules, and they're finally starting to open back up. And I think there was a pent-up demand for it, and I think this is a great use for this facility. That being said, staff is in support, and we would ask that the Planning Commission make a determination that the parking is met and approve the special land use.
Okay. Is there a petitioner in the audience? Come on up, please. All right, just grab a couple of chairs, gentlemen. And you need to state your name and address for the record.
Gasper Monaco, Hoco Group, 48709 Hayes Road.
Okay, sir.
David Garmo, 281 Enterprise Court, Bloomfield Hills.
Okay, and you're the last one.
Guy Cockamo, 53632 Shelby Township.
Okay, thank you. do you have anything you'd like to add to Mr. Box's report?
No, I think I'm fine with his report.
Okay. None of, okay. Commissioners, Mr. Spatafora.
Gentlemen, good evening. I know in the presentation you had like 3 separate times for the classes, and you plan to be open 6 days a week. Within those 3 times or outside that, do you plan to have regular hours where they'd be open during the day for continuous operations?
No, sir. So during our class times, we'll be open 1 hour prior to class and 1 hour after class ends, and each session is about 1 hour long. So it will be a 3-hour window during each proposed time that will be open, and then typically we shut up shop, clean up, and then wait for students to come in for the next time slot. On the weekends, we only have 1 class, so we won't be having all 3 sessions on Saturday. It'll be likely just 1 session for the adults.
Okay, so you'll be opening the building an hour before the first class, having the class, and then after it's done until the second class, you'll be locking, departing the premises, and to come back at some point later on?
That's correct. We may not depart the premises ourselves, but the doors will be locked and it will be closed to the public.
Okay. Genuinely, with your, I don't know if you've experienced this and have this with any other locations, what are we looking at as far as parking and the number of patrons and,
Yeah,
customers coming in?
we currently have 1 location, our flagship location in Bloomfield Hills. We've been open for about 6 years now. And typically our day classes, the 11:30 classes, are smaller than our evening classes. So parking typically synergizes well with the rest of the businesses that have normal 9 to 5 hours. Our busier classes, the ones that look like, between 15 and 20 students, will be in the evening, typically after people have already gone home from the other businesses. I'm not sure what other businesses will be there, currently or in the future, but typically it synergizes really well with that. So, between our day class, which is for people who don't work during the day, 5 to 10 is probably pretty typical.
Parking spaces?
5 to 10 students, so that could be anywhere, under 10 parking spaces, correct. And then for the evening classes, it's usually people come in pairs a lot of times, so we're probably looking at about 15 spots on a heavier night, or maybe 16 spots on a heavier night, and then,
Okay, from your due diligence with this, do you feel with what's existing there, approximately 193 spots, that would be sufficient for your business?
It would be more than sufficient. We couldn't fill that parking lot anywhere close. Our current location has quite a few more members than we expect to have at this location due to population density of where we're at, and we have less parking spots, and we have never had an issue in parking in our building that we're currently at.
Okay, and when do you anticipate, and I know you said an hour afterward, but like the latest hour that you would close for the day? Approximately 8:30 p.m.?
Yeah,
thereabouts?
typically around 8:30. So our schedule at our current location, which we plan to mimic for this second location, we have class at 6:30. Class ends right around 7:30. We allow people to continue to train for a little bit longer, and then they get ready and they kind of are out the door about right around 8:30.
Okay. You plan to make any improvements to the lighting surround there, particularly for your evening patrons?
On the outside of the building?
Yes. There's no lighting there now?
Lighting's already up on the building.
It's already up? It's sufficient to govern all in the parking
Yep.
area facing down?
It's
Okay.
per code.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spatafora. Anyone else?
Yeah, I got a quick question.
Mr. Olive?
Couple questions. Are you is there ever a time where you have a competitive meeting where 200 cars show up in a competition type setting?
So competitions are typically done by third parties at event centers, gymnasiums, such as that, so to speak. Typically, we won't be doing anything in-house, so we're likely never going to be in a situation where we have so many people coming to an event. So no, our typical class load is what we're looking at for 365 days a year, minus the 1 day a week that we're closed.
Okay. The other question is, at the fullest capacity, this bodies, how many people would you have? 50, 100?
Nowhere near 100. If we really packed it in, 35 maybe to be safe. I mean, if we're talking like really packing it in, which we typically wouldn't do, we want smaller class sizes to better serve the students. So having that many is not going to be typical for us. If a random day where everybody showed up on one day, that might happen. But typically, to err on the side of caution, 25 will probably be the max we're going to get on a normal day. But that's really pushing it.
And I'm assuming you're gonna have lavatories and washing
Absolutely.
areas.
Yes, we'll have.
No showers?
We will have showers.
You will have showers,
Correct.
okay. So you're gonna put them facilities in that building?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the other thing is, you mentioned after the class,
Mhm.
the people leave, you guys might do bookkeeping or whatever. But the doors are locked. I just couldn't come in there and,
Correct.
with somebody else and do stuff.
No. So unless one of the employees is there, nobody will be allowed to be in the building on their own. So we're not going to have key card access or anything like that, like a 24-hour fitness type of situation. And so because this is going to be kind of a family affair, my partners in the corner over there, they'll be running the gym, Calvin and Tia over there, and they're going to be trying to run as normal hours as they can. They have a 3-month-old baby, you can probably see in that corner. So they'll be trying to maximize their efficiency as far as being at the gym, being there pretty much all day, and then going home afterwards. So nobody's going to be in there late at night doing an extra session on their own or anything like that.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
If somebody can decide to go in there 2 in the morning and do whatever they need to do,
Yeah,
that's not allowed.
That's not going to be allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I did have a question to petitioner, a question to Josh. I think I'll ask Josh first, actually. Josh, you mentioned parking spots, probably the biggest question with this one. Are there any appropriate sections of the ordinance that we have to be careful of here? Are you concerned that they're over, or is it more of a subjective judgment?
I think it's more of a subjective judgment. The parking was met on the site plan for the square footage of the building, assuming, light industrial use. Obviously, this is slightly different than a typical light industrial use. In some of the athletic facilities, in particular the baseball one, I know parking was a big concern. That's why I brought that up. But I think that's not really apples to apples here. Those type of facilities tend to get much larger groups. I mean, he's talking about 25, 35 at the absolute max. I think some of those baseball facilities are getting 50 to 60 on a regular basis. So this is completely a different ballgame. And again, as someone who has been to gyms like this many times over the years, I would agree that you never know how many people are going to show up for a class each day. It might be 10, it might be 25, but they're never overly packed. And to his point, you really don't want them overly packed because this is a sport that you need a lot of one-on-one instruction, and too many people would make the gym not very successful.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then to the petitioner, 2 questions. One, what do you see as the general or average age range for students?
So we'll have a pretty wide variety. So we'll start kids at age 4, and they'll go till 12. So there'll be a 4 to 12-year-old class that might eventually get split up as we get a little bit busier. And then there'll be an adult age class that's typically teenagers and up. So our cross-section of students at our current location is, in my adult class, I have many kids at around 13, 14, and I have a gentleman in their 70s training, and then I have everything in between. So it's the widest cross-section of students you could possibly have in one place. So it's pretty interesting, but I can't give you a number. It just wouldn't be so helpful.
Is there generally a time period that you have younger students in?
Yes. So the 5 p.m. session will be for the kids, and then after that, or before that and after that, will be for the adults. So the 11:30 section is going to be for adult students. We run our program all year round, so it's not run in seasons like other sports are. So, whether it's the middle of June or the middle of December, it's the same schedule across the board. So adults at 11:30, adults at 6:30, kids at 5.
Okay. And then the last question, I'm not familiar with the sport to this extent, but do you typically have competitions? Is there any ever time when you are hosting larger groups for something other than a training session?
No, not that we'll be hosting at our facility. They're typically, like I mentioned to Mr. Oliver, they're typically done at a third party in an event center or something like that. There can be events as small as 200 people or 2,000 people, but they're not done in-house.
And if you mentioned it, my apologies. I
Yeah, no,
I was
not a
listening
problem.
for it, but I missed it. So you're not expecting any stands or any sort of viewing areas within here?
We will have some bench seating, and that can be for students who are waiting for kids' class to finish to enter, or parents to watch their kids, but nothing more than that.
Incidental to the use, not that you're bringing people into view. To
Exactly.
any type of event.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
And I think you mentioned this, but do you have fixed hours that you're planning on? You've mentioned 11. You mentioned 11:30. You mentioned 6:30. You've given some time before and after. You're not. It sounds like you're not quite set on the time yet. Typically, when we have a concern with this, it's not uncommon for us to attach a time to the special land use. It makes us more comfortable that we're keeping within a bound. Do you have a set time?
So we have those 3 set times will be our times for our classes. They may want to get in at a normal working hour at 8 or 9 a.m. and then work all the way through, but likely no later than 8:30. But if we want it to be safe, no later than 9 o'clock.
So, but general public, you're thinking
General public will be
10:30 to 8.
8:30.
10:30 to 8:30.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Aloya, just to verify, obviously we were doing conditional rezonings. Special land use is different. We can attach conditions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then to the petitioner, if and I don't know if the board would go for this or if it would allow it to be in a motion, but if we had a motion that restricted public access, not employee access, but public access from 10:30 to 8:30, is that sufficient for you? Is that okay?
He's trying to restrict your hours. You want to give him a
We would prefer not to have a restriction in case we did want to add a 6 a.m. class for our executives, guys who are going to work in the mornings and stuff, and so on and so forth. So we would prefer not to, but
Specifically because you might expand to an earlier hour.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
And just so that you're aware, my consideration, where we've seen this before, where I draw the most concern, is not when the parking lot is stable, because then either there's spaces or not, but specifically at the high peak entrance or exit hours. And that's part of why I ask relative, obviously I think it's safer, maybe subjectively, but safer when there's adults coming through as opposed to parents and children.
Yes.
So to me, not knowing where it can grow, we're not limiting the size. That's where the hours, to me, it's typical for us because then we know what we are approving. And if you said all of our classes are in the morning rush hour or in the evening rush hour, it's going to be different than 11:30 or 7:30 or the weekend. So
Sure.
just so you're aware, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, not as a restriction, but because that makes me more comfortable with the safety aspect here. But
Yes, if I could touch on that. Our kids' programs will never be in the morning. Almost across the entire nation, there are no kids classes during the daytime or in the AM at all. So all of our any AM considerations will always be just for adults, and the kids classes will typically always be after school. And so we have dedicated 5 p.m. for the kids, and there is a potential for an earlier class on the weekend. We currently have one at our other location at 11 a.m., but again, typically not during business hours for most businesses, especially in a light industrial area. But I can't say that for sure because I don't know what businesses are there, but for the most part, we typically synergize really well with any other business.
And just to clarify, the half of the building that he's going into right now, is being occupied. They're starting this week, and it's a tool and die shop that took half the building, and they're operating from 7 to 3. And the units above, just south of him, another unit is a home builder office, which is just a storage shop, and basically that's it.
and to your point, a 7 to 3 hours work well with the hours that
that's
you
what I was
mentioned.
getting
But
at.
that's again, I understand that the need for flexibility, but that's where I would look to try to make sure that we had it set. Because if they're all getting there at 7 and you're all getting there at 7, then there's potentially a different consideration for how is parking working, what is their load, because I don't know the load of the light industrial around there. I don't have the load of the building in front of me.
Half the the person that took the half the building, I think there's 10 employees, 12 employees.
And just so I verify, because I believe this gentleman is the operator. Are you the building owner?
I'm the building owner, yes.
Okay, all right,
So,
very good.
But like I said, there should be plenty of parking, but I know you gotta determine for, yeah, so.
Understood. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Nope.
No? Good. Then I'm gonna make a motion to open this item to the public at 8:23.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Is there anyone that'd like to come up to the podium and speak on this? Okay, and I guess that's a no. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing at 8:24,
Support.
supported by Mr. Oliver. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Commissioners, anything else? Or can we have somebody make a motion?
Mr. Chair, if I could, just a quick follow-up with Josh. Josh, are you comfortable without restricting the hours on this?
I am.
Okay.
And you're also comfortable, Josh, through the chair, as far as what you see with the existing parking? I know we're to determine it, but with
Yeah,
your-
well, the existing parking is not a problem yet because there's no businesses. These are brand-new buildings that they're just starting to get businesses in. But they do have ample parking, especially for the businesses that he just mentioned that will be going in there. And again, I have been to gyms like this. I think Mr. Aloya has as well, some CrossFit, and he does the 6 a.m. class, actually. So
5:15.
So they do exist, and there's never a parking problem.
Okay. Then do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further discussion, I would make a motion to approve the special land use for Assembly Jiu-Jitsu, permanent parcel number 08173444027, based upon the recommendations from the Planning Department, the facts that we've heard here this evening, and the harmony and synchrosity that it would have with the surrounding uses.
Motion by Mr. Tuckfield for the special land use assembly jiu-jitsu, supported by Mr. Oliver. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
I will. Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes, Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. You're good, gentlemen. Thank you.
Just a comment, gentlemen. Thank you for coming to Macomb Township, investing in us, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
And I don't want to go into a lot, but so how close is this to karate? Same thing? Just give me the quick
It's more
version.
similar. It's more similar to wrestling than karate. Karate is more striking based. This is more grappling based. So grabbing, holding, self-defense aspects like that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, which you guys
Well,
are
it's
all
good that a 70-year-old man can go there.
Right on you.
I didn't.
You want a demonstration?
Are you that person?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. We have one person left
Man, they bust me.
in the room, and I'd like to open it for public comments on non-agenda items. Anything, sir? No? Okay. Commissioner comments.
Mr. Chair, if there is no one else, I would just make one comment that our only resident left in the audience is we can't call him trustee-elect because we haven't gotten to the general election, but realistically,
He would be trustee.
I don't think,
Yeah.
if he isn't, he will be. So just want to mention Mr. Ron Papa won his race in August, and I think he's here observing tonight. We appreciate seeing him watching the other boards and getting ready for his duties, as I'm sure the rest of the residents do. So I just wanted to mention that he was here and thank him for being here.
Trustee in waiting.
There you go.
Trustee and waiting. Yes, that sounds perfect.
You remember, you still got to vote for yourself in November to get in.
Got to get at least one.
Okay, Macomb Township Board of Trustee Liaison update.
I will give it to you.
Mr. Charles Oliver.
Couple of things. There was 2 meetings. The Department of Public Works, Macomb Township, is doing a lot of work on our buildings. We're redoing the HVAC here, interfacing with some of the technical things with it. We bought a new generator, and we're finishing the roof on the rec center. So that's kind of some of the things. We're selling the house on 23 Mile Road next to the
Fire station?
lift station. No, there's a lift station there. And we were trying to sell it on our own, but our broker that we deal with in the township, he took it upon himself and he says he's gonna sell it, no commission. So that was kind of a nice gesture of him. So that was good. I just want to give him a little kudos. And the meeting of the 28th, not too much. Kind of a general meeting. Dinner with the Gardens got a special land event, which didn't need to come to us. So that was that, and that was it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Oliver. Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
ZBA.
the only thing I would mention is that we have a ZBA on Thursday, which I believe has got multiple agenda items. We'll probably be there Thursday for a similar length of time as tonight, and I will report back if there's anything interesting.
Okay. Planning Department items?
Sure. Mr. Tuckfield is correct. There is a rather lengthy agenda. I believe there are 5 items on the ZBA agenda Thursday, 2 of which will be requesting to be tabled, though, so it'll shorten it a little bit. That being said, the September 17th Planning Commission and the next month's ZBA are both also going to be rather long agenda items, so
Got you.
be ready for that. On another note, the Planning Department, at the last board meeting, the board approved a letter of understanding with the union, which part of that included a promotion for Melissa. So Melissa is now Planning Supervisor 1 in the Planning Department, a well-deserved promotion for her. So that's it.
You know, I just wanted to throw something else out there, just point of information. This Thursday, Joe Warren, our firefighter, is gonna do his walk.
Oh, yeah.
And if anyone wants to meet at the fire station 2 on 21 Mile Road at 7:15 a.m., maybe some people don't get up that early, I don't know, but I do. You could walk with Mr. Warren for the first 2 miles. It's kind of a nice,
Oh, very cool.
so, just something if you want to
What was
do
that
it.
date?
Okay.
Thursday. I think it is, yeah.
At what time?
We start gathering at 7:15.
What time does the walking actually start?
It's kind of ceremonious, you know, maybe 8:15 at the latest. They close the street, and we walk to Hayes Road. I couldn't walk last year because of my knee situation, but now that I'm tuned up, I'm gonna do that walk again, and I'm even thinking about the jiu-jitsu. Only kidding.
All right.
I'm a
Sounds good.
jiu-jitsu.
All right.
Yeah, then that's it.
Anything else, anyone? All right. Motion to adjourn? Anybody?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Spatafor, seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We are adjourned at 8:31. Thank you.